Mindset, a daily dose of practical wit and wisdom with a professional educator and trainer, Amazon best-selling author, United States Marine, television and radio host, Paul G. Markel. Each episode will focus on positive and productive ways to strengthen your mindset and help you improve your relationships, career goals, and overall well-being. Please welcome your host, Paul G. Markel.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the Morning Mindset Podcast. I am still your host, Paul Markel, and we're going to continue on Chapter 2 in the Morning Mindset book, A 30-Day Plan for a More Positive and Productive Life. Chapter 2 is Self-Assessment, or Gut Check Time. Yes, indeed. And yes, those are the pages of the actual legitimate dead tree version of the book that are in my hand right now. It's in my hand. You know what I may do? I was thinking. Since I'm going to, this was a brand new book. It's actually a brand new signed book that I went out into the office and I took off of the shelf out of the inventory. And I guess I need to tell Zach the Shipping Ogre, I need to tell him that I pulled a book out of the inventory so he can deduct it. I was thinking that when I finish this, maybe I'll put the date on it and I'll personalize it, and maybe I will send it off to one of you guys. What do you think? As a memento or keepsake or whatever. Let's think about that. All right, self-assessment, gut check time. Everybody has to start somewhere, and that where you are today is your starting point. It does not do you any good to fret or worry or feel bad over the fact that right now you're not as advanced as you think you should be. You're not as far ahead as you think you should be, or what have you. Or you compare yourself to someone else. Well, this person is doing blank, or that person is doing blank, or they have more money than me, or they have a better job than me, or they're skinnier than I am, or they're stronger than I am, or what have you. You cannot possibly lead a positive and productive life if you focus all of your attention on what other people are doing and what other people have, wishing that you were the same way. You're not them, they're not you. Self-assessment and gut check is basically this: being honest with yourself, analyzing your current situation. Maybe your current situation is better than you thought it was. Maybe when you take stock in your life, in your career, in your family, you might realize, you know what? I'm doing way better than I ever gave myself credit for. And if you're honest with yourself, you probably are doing better than you give yourself credit for. Most people spend far too much time focusing on the negative, and it's natural, it's common. I do it, you do it, we all do it. We get frustrated and we focus on the negative, and that's okay, but you can't get stuck there. You can't get stuck focusing on the negative or focusing on what you don't have or focusing on what other people have that you do not. Self-assessment is saying, hey, where am I right now? Going back to the weight loss goal, let's say, self-assessment and gut check is making yourself climb up on the scale and knowing that the scale is not a liar, knowing that it's a true scale. There's a lot of scales out there, inexpensive, imported, made in Taiwan or China scales that aren't quite right. But self-assessment gut check time is making yourself climb up on that scale and looking at the numbers and saying, okay, and it doesn't matter what the numbers are, that's where you are right now. Whether, you want more weight, less weight, stay the same, whatever, self-assessment and gut check is actually being honest enough to say, all right, this is where I am. When it comes to strength training is very easy. Linear progression is easy. You figure out what you can lift, whether it's the squat or the deadlift or the bench press or the standing press or whatever. You figure it out, and you take a pen and a notebook, and you write down that number. You'd say you start at your overhead press is 75 pounds, right? You just started pressing. Your overhead press is 75 pounds. But you say, but it's easy to go to the gym and look across the way and see somebody else doing a 150-pound press and thinking, man, I'm not even going to start. That guy's so far ahead of me. He can lift so much more. It doesn't matter because we're not talking about him. We're talking about you. You write that number down, and then you dedicate yourself, and then you move on, and then you can check that number again in 2 weeks, in 2 months, in 6 months, in a year. Where are you now? And when you do that, you can make an honest assessment of your progress. But ladies and gentlemen, what I want you to do is I want you to focus on where you are now. You may have a college degree. You may have 18 years of experience in your career field. You're way ahead of the 22-year-old who just got a piece of paper from a college and now is going to try and find a career. You're way ahead of that person. That person might be jealous of you. That person might think, man, I wish I had 18 years experience in the field already, or 20 years, or 10 years, or whatever. You're sitting there thinking, oh, woe is me. And someone else wishes they could be you because you have that kind of experience. So let's focus on ourselves. Let's focus on our own gut check. And if we're being honest, that is the hardest thing for people to do, especially in today's day and age, in our modern times where nothing is ever anyone's fault. Everyone is a victim of some sort of oppression or some sort of prejudice or bigotry or unfairness or whatever. We literally live in a world, in a society where the mainstream trend of thinking is, well, it's not your fault. You didn't win because you didn't try hard enough. That's not why you didn't win. You didn't win because the other person cheated. The other person has more money than you because they took advantage of the system and they got more money than you. It's not your fault you don't have as much money as them. There's a systematic unfairness that's preventing you from having everything you want. Yeah, it's real, and it's really screwed up. And we're not going to be able to repair our nation. We're not going to be able to make things better as a country until we admit that this, ridiculous notion of universal fairness is childish. That's what 5-year-olds say. 5-year-olds say, it's not fair. It's not my fault. We're not supposed to be 5 years old. We're not supposed to have a 5-year-old mentality when we're 30 or 28 or 50 or 47 or whatever, how old you are. There are fully grown adults in the United States of America that are unwilling to take, credit or blame. Well, they'll take credit if something's good, but they won't take blame when something's bad. They won't take the blame. They won't accept the responsibility for their own lives because it's far easier to be a victim. It's far easier to say it's not my fault. It's far easier to say it's not fair. People who are successful in business, people who have successful careers and positive family lives, people who remained married after 15, 20, 30, 40 years. My grandparents were married over 50 years. Those people didn't get that type of relationship because they blamed everyone else for their problems and everything was unfair. No. They accepted responsibility for their shortcomings and they worked harder to make things better. If you legitimately look up to business people, I don't know who's your favorite business person, the easy ones to tick off are, like Bill Gates and so forth. Those people didn't get, I don't really like Bill Gates, but he didn't get there by blaming everyone else. He didn't get there by saying, things aren't fair and the government needs to pass a law and make everything fair for me. That's not how he got to where he's at. Tony Robbins, Henry Ford. I mean, if you wanted to go back and look at the famous inventors and entrepreneurs in our world, Benjamin Franklin and Thomas Edison and Albert Einstein. Both Einstein and Edison, when they were children, one of them was accused of, I think it was one of Edison's teachers said that he was just dumb, and Einstein's teachers described him as a very poor student. Gut check time. Where are you right now? Accept responsibility for your own life, both your successes and your shortcomings. Be honest with yourself. Get rid of this notion of fairness and all this nonsense about it's not my fault, I'm a victim. No. Everything in your life is your responsibility. Your successes are your responsibility and your failures are your responsibility. And as soon as you own up to those things and have an honest discussion with yourself about self-assessment and gut check time, the better off you'll be. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that was part 2, self-assessment and gut check. I am your host, Paul Markel, and we will continue with the Morning Mindset book study during the very next episode. And I will talk to you again real soon.
Thank you for spending time with us today. To get show notes, submit a topic request, and for more from your host, Paul G. Markel, visit morningmindsetpodcast.com. That's morningmindsetpodcast.com. Please leave a review for this podcast on your favorite podcast player. We appreciate your time and effort, and we look forward to reading your honest feedback.